hearing on this date, on Wednesday, June the 21st. I might mention that we have received a number of these blue cards. You heard about it in the video, but if any of you are wishing to speak on any of these cases and have yet to turn one in, we have received a total of 4, including one that was done actually on white. It was off of electronic copy. I'd ask you to bring those forth at this time, or raise your hand so we know one's coming. Are we good? Looks like we are. Nope, one more is coming. While we're waiting for that last one, the first item on our agenda will be to read the consent agenda. And Michelle Dockey will do that. Do we have another one? Did I see one in the back? Okay, so we have 2. 2 over there, so we have 3. What is this one for? We pulled off, so we have, but do we have 4D pulled off?
Yes.
4D is off.
I had 4E.
Okay. Oh, 4E is off. Yes, it is, so, okay, so we're good, thank you. Okay. Well, Michelle, I believe we have them all now. If you would like to go ahead and read that, the consent agenda.
Okay, item 2A is approval of the minutes from the April 18th and April 19th, 2017 study session and regular hearing. Item 2B is approval of the minutes from the May 16th and May 17th, 2017 study session and regular hearing minutes. Item 3A is case Z17015 in District 2, the 400 block of South Higley Road, located on the east side of Higley Road, south of Broadway Road, on approximately 2.5 acres. This is a site plan review to allow for the development of a self-storage facility, and the staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item 3B is case Z17025 in District 6, the 8300 block of East Pecos Road, located east of Sauceman Road on the south side of Pecos, on approximately 28 acres. This is a site plan review to allow for the development of an industrial building, and the staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Is that the one that was updated we made reference?
Was that the one that had modified conditions? If so?
No condition.
Okay, no, that one was okay. It was
Okay,
4C.
4C, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And item 4C is case Z17023 in District 2, 1132 South Oakland Drive, located west of Greenfield and north of Southern on approximately 1.2 acres. This is a rezoning from OCPAD to NCPAD, a PAD modification and a council use permit for an inpatient substance abuse facility. The staff recommendation is approval with the conditions as modified in our study session. And item 4G, case Z17028, District 5, the 5400 to 5600 blocks of East Thomas Road, located east of Higley Road on the north side of Thomas, approximately 11 acres. This is a rezone to modify the existing PAD overlay to reduce the side and rear yard setbacks within the existing subdivision, and the staff recommendation is approval with conditions. And item 5C is the Mission Park 2 preliminary.
That one's gonna have to come off too, since the companion zoning
I
case was.
apologize. Okay, then that concludes the consent agenda then.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I motion to approve the consent agenda as read with
Okay.
all of the associated stipulations and changes.
Thank you, Dane. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Jennifer. Is there any discussion? If not, please vote. Okay, the motion carries unanimously with those that are present, with noting that Mr. Arkita and Ms. Sarkeesian are not present today. Any of those that are here for those cases are invited to leave if you choose, or to stay and listen. That being said, we will proceed to our first case, which would be item 4A, that's Z17-021, District 6, the 8500, 8800 blocks of East Guadalupe Road. And with that, I will turn time over, let's see, Leslie, are you you did get, okay. John, I'll turn the time over to you to discuss this case.
Yes, Chair, board members, I'll give you a quick overview of this case. Since I'm pitch hitting, I might not have all the details. Feel free to ask questions afterward. But this is a request for rezone, site plan review, and preliminary plat for the 8500, 8800 blocks of East Guadalupe Road on the north side. The request is to modify the zoning on this almost 20-acre parcel from a commercial zone, LC, to the RS, make sure I get it right, RS6 PAD zoning district. The proposal includes land on both sides of Joslyn. They're on the north side of Guadalupe. The property has, I believe it's 14 lots on the west side, and then another 64, I believe, on the east side. Some numbers along that line for single-family residential development of this property. The request is consistent with the general plan designation in the area. It has previously been thought it could be a commercial site because of its proximity to the freeway and off-ramps there, but it's been in this condition for many years. The actual commercial developments have moved east and west to arterial corners, and even those haven't fully developed. So I feel like we've really exceeded the demand and need for the commercial development in this area. So transition to the residential is appropriate. There are some concerns by the neighbors, particularly from those Swear estates immediately to the north, with the compatibility of what's being proposed in terms of two-story units close to their properties. I think that's one of the things you'll hear about, as well as some traffic concerns with Joslyn that may come up. That's, again, a quick overview of the proposal. Do you have any questions?
Board members, any questions for staff at this point? Not, I'll turn some time over to the applicant.
Good evening, members of the board. Brennan Ray, 702 East Osborne, here on behalf of the applicant, Madam A. Holmes. As staff has indicated and has been briefed very thoroughly in the study session on Tuesday, as well as in detailed in your report, there are multiple requests for this less than 20-acre, 19.69 gross acre development. I'm happy to go into as much detail as this board would like. I get the sense and impression that I maybe should focus on some of the concerns that have been preliminarily raised and focus my efforts there rather than going into lot sizes and house product, design guidelines and stuff like that. So with your permission, I'll go ahead and address those, and then would like the opportunity to address any lingering concerns from any of the residents that are going to speak tonight, if that's okay.
That would be just fine.
Okay, bear with me 1 minute. What should be on your screen momentarily is an outline of the site that accompanies this request. As we went through the process, we've held 2 neighborhood meetings on this. The first neighborhood meeting that we held on the 24th of May focused primarily on this north case. There was an overlap in the notification areas, so we decided to break it up and really focus the concerns on that. So at that first neighborhood meeting that we had, focusing again on the north, there was approximately 6 neighbors that showed up. And the concerns that staff has communicated to you tonight were some of the similar concerns that we heard then. And as we looked at it, one of the primary concerns that we heard dealt with traffic. And I can go into a lot of detail about that, but I believe that planning staff has correctly said that's an issue for the transportation staff to look at. So I won't dilly-dally on talking about the traffic and any potential concerns with Jocelyn and Guadalupe. The other issue that came up dealt with a question that we hear a lot when we're talking about residential on residential is the number of 1s and 2 stories backing up to existing homes. So as we look and focus in on the 2 areas, this was one of the areas in question, and this is on the northeast side of our development. That road off to the right, that's the Loop 202 freeway. And so in looking at these homes right here, one of the things that we began to notice when we were asked, hey, would you consider it? First and foremost, we believe that the market should dictate where a home should be built, whether it's a 1-story or a 2-story. But as we drill down specifically into this and looking at these homes, one of the things that starts to jump out and becomes very evident is the amount of depth that you have on the north side. Based on our rough calculations, I believe our closest residence, which is over near lots 12 and 13, is approximately 48 feet away. Our deepest resident on the north is 83 feet away. So as you can tell, there is a significant and substantial buffering that's already occurring from these residents to our residents by virtue of these deep backyards. That's notwithstanding that I believe for this subdivision, the required setbacks are 15. But given the depth of these lots, I think the shortest lot on the left side of the screen, or the east or the west side, is 139 feet. So from a comparison standpoint, there's lots of depth, lots of separation. I can tell you that anecdotally, although we can't put hard numbers to it, we know that communities these days are developing more with 1-story floor plans. That's kind of the trend. That's what people are looking for. And so we do have 2 single-story floor plans proposed for this community in addition to 2-story plans. But as I indicated, one of the best things that we know to regulate is allowing the market to dictate what homes go where. So we believe that here there's lots of other good and positive things that are going on that wouldn't necessarily justify us putting a restriction on those homes there. The other area that we know is a concern deals with what's on the west side of Jocelyn. You see on your screen there that as John indicated, there are 14 lots proposed over there. We are bordered on the north by Navarro, on our west by Lynch, and then obviously Jocelyn on our east and Guadalupe on our south. As we start to look at this, and some of the feedback that we heard at the neighborhood meeting dealt particularly with focusing on kind of our northernmost lots in that community, lots 4 and 5. And obviously the concern is that we're looking into their yards. I can tell you that we don't look into anyone's yards on our north side, on our west side, again, with the exception of lot number 9 on our very south, adjacent to Guadalupe. So as you start to look at the concerns, obviously on the north, there is a landscape tract that will be there that falls, if I remember right, outside of our property line. On the west side, between lots 4 through 6, there's another 10-foot landscape tract. That is not part of our community. That is an existing landscape tract that is there. And then you start to look at the streets, and those are 50 feet of right-of-way that occurs there on Lynch, on Navarro, and then really focusing on Lynch where there might be any potential to look. One of the things that jumps out immediately is there's a bunch of trees there. And so when you start to look, this is kind of that bird's eye view of what I'll call looking down the rifle barrel. And you start to see that there is a lot of mature, big trees, big landscaping that goes there. And so from a street level view, that is what you are seeing over there. And so we don't believe that the concerns of of our residents in a two-story home looking into their rear yards and privacy is really will happen again because of a lot of the existing conditions in place. So with that, those are kind of the two areas that we know from the neighborhood meeting and from some of the comments that I believe were provided to this board before we got here, as we start to look at that. So with that, there was one other issue that I will just touch on briefly that's not pertinent for this board's discussion, but I thought I would acknowledge so that the neighbors would have an understanding as well. And that deals with an existing sign for Le Sueur Estates that is out on the corner of Jocelyn and Guadalupe. We have had discussions with the HOA, and we are going to continue to have discussions with the HOA on how that sign gets resolved and what ultimately ends up happening with that. So with that, again, we know that we're consistent with the general plan. We're appreciative of staff's report. We're okay with the conditions 1 through 9, and would request this body's recommendation for approval to the City Council. Again, happy to answer any questions that this board might have, and certainly would appreciate the opportunity to come up and address any concerns that I may not have already addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, very good. We'll call you back once the public has had an opportunity to speak. In that regard, we have 3 individuals who have submitted cards. And let's see, I'll begin with Flora D'Angelo. You wish to speak. You have not indicated whether you're in favor of. Yes, if you'd come forward. If you give us your name and address.
Thank you, Board, for letting me speak. My name is Flora D'Angelo, and I live at 8705 East Nopal. And prior to this meeting, I am under the understanding that the board members received a copy of a packet that I put together explaining my concerns. I'm the resident that actually lives at 8705, which would be behind the proposed sites of Matemi Homes 12 and 13. My main concern is the fact that my back wall of my house would not be aligned with one backyard. What would happen is they would make a T, and there would be half of a yard for one house there and another half there. I understand that we have to put something in this lot that's viable to the community because it has been open for so long and it does look a little ratty. However, when you look at the proportion of the lot that they're going to build on, the only houses that are being direct ties into our common wall are the 7 homes, I believe, that I'm asking for them to change the plan from being possible 2 and 1st-story or 1-story homes. My main concern is if I end up with 2-story homes behind my home, that means I'm going to be looking at 2 houses, half of one and half of another, and it's going to just be a complete, you're not going to be able to see hardly out into the horizon, let's say. Excuse my lingo, this is the first time I'm doing this. So I just feel that there's about 80 houses, I think, in that proposed area there, and there's only nine houses that are currently existing houses that are going to have direct tie-ins to our common wall. So my thing is this is a community that's going to be a private community, or gated community, let's say, and as Mr. Brennan brought up, there's going to be a buffer, but he's counting my yard as a buffer, whereas in the rest of the outline of the proposed sites, there is going to be a real buffer. But mine is a direct connect into the common wall with the other 8 homes. So I'm not trying to be a bad neighbor. I just think that I may end up with 2 2-story homes. I could end up with 1-story home and then a 2-story home and then a 1-story, and it would be kind of like lopsided looking. Aesthetically, it wouldn't look correct. And I just feel that I think that our community should stay autonomous or different from or away from what they're planning. And again, I just want to point out again, when you look at the actual site, it's all of this. The little homes that are on the top here are the only ones that they're tying into. Everybody else has some kind of a wash, a street, or something. They're directly tying into these 9 homes. And so I would like to stay separate from that community. Not because I want to be a bad neighbor, but because I want to protect my side. And again, I don't think it's going to look correct, and it's just going to obscure what we're trying to do. We just bought the house in November, and we took down all the vegetation because we wanted to put a swimming pool in, and now all our plans are on hold. So I think I outlined in my letter, I hope I outlined in my letter exactly what I'm trying to say now. And I just want to say thank you very much. And this has been a very informative experience for me. It's my first time, so thank you.
Well, you did fine. Flora, if I had a question for you, just to clarify, so are you asking that we stipulate that only single-family homes, or that we actually impose additional buffer? Just
I mean,
what are you really
obviously, I think that when we bought the home, we were under the impression it was slated for commercial property. And with commercial property, there would be some type of a natural buffer that they would put in. Ideally, I would have liked another buffer, but since I'm not an architect and I don't know what the easiest plan would be, I would like another buffer. However, if it's not possible, I would say, one-story homes, Ideally, I would like a buffer, like something completely away, but again, I'm not trying to deter the project. Matami Homes representatives have been very respectful, and again, I understand that we need a viable option, and it would look nice, but they're tying directly into our home. So if a buffer is possible, if there's a suggestion for a good buffer, that would be absolutely the number one thing. But I understand in terms of monetary, it would probably be just easier to say, okay, we're only going to do single-story homes, considering that they're connecting directly into our wall.
Thank you for that. We'll let the applicant respond.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next, I have a card from Kelly Hyde. If you'll come forward. You would like to speak, you are opposed to this item, and your comment is that the project poses privacy issues and will drop the property values, but raise property taxes.
A little bit different. So west of Jocelyn. Okay, that's good.
You want that one?
Yep.
Or you want that one?
No, that'll work.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Kelly Hyde. I live at the address of 8531 East Naranja. The home I own will be the easternmost home bordering tracks 7, 8, and 9 on your screen. Obviously, my concerns I wrote down are privacy. First and foremost, there will be 3 houses looking down into my yard with very little setback whatsoever. I've been a resident of Mesa since 2006. I purchased this home just about 3 years ago with the sole idea of a larger backyard, a pool for my young children, and the privacy that comes with it. Overall concern is not having an adjacent neighbor, but rather having an adjacent neighbor in a 2-story format that would be looking straight down into our yard. Not one home, but 3 homes. Second overall concern is mainly rezoning from a commercial development to a residential development, and what that does for both property taxes as property value. You take commercial out of the equation, the city of Mesa loses property tax opportunities. So where's the city of Mesa going to make that opportunity up? Are we going to raise property taxes for the homeowners in the area to offset that change? Because that's not fair to the residents of this neighborhood. 3 years ago, I bought the property knowing that it was a single-family home, a single-story floor plan, and with the impression, as the rest of the neighborhood, that this would be a commercial development. I do want to point out that every single home west of Jocelyn, which eventually turns into Monterey and exits onto Haas, every single home in this community west of Jocelyn, south of Monterey, is a single-family, single-story home. There's not a single 2-story floor plan in the community. So that alone is my overall concern and how that would appeal to the neighborhood in which I live in, and how it would appeal to my home in particular, being so close to the adjacent residential properties.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So you're basically concerned about lots on the west side, 7, 8, and 9, because you are in that one referenced home that is perhaps most impacted in the
Correct.
project, okay?
I mean, the distance between the edge of my home and the wall that separates my home and the lot is 10 foot, give or take. And you can imagine, putting a 2-story home on a minimum 4,500 square foot lot is being proposed. There's going to be very little backyard, and the home's going to probably be within 20 foot of my home.
My hunch would be that you're most concerned about the outcome of Lot 9, is that correct?
Well, lot 8 and 9 in particular, The master bedroom is on the east side of my home. There's a bay window for a bathtub, for a soaking tub, and, looking out that window to a 2-story home was never part of our buying experience.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our third participant is Damian Bench. You are opposed to the project and wish to speak. If you'd come forward.
Actually, I was concerned about the south side development.
Did we label this incorrectly? No? Which is fine. We will defer you till this to 4B. Wrong, okay. Well, you had the incorrect case number, but we'll make it the appropriate one. That'll be just fine. So thank you. Okay, if the applicant would come forward.
Chairman, members of the board, I heard a variety of things that I think I could address, but I'm going to get to the heart of the matter. And why don't I start with this last gentleman who got up and spoke, who we're glad he showed up. He didn't come to our neighborhood meeting, and so we're glad that he's here expressing his concerns, because we do agree that he, probably more than anyone else, is very impacted. And so with that, and recognizing that really, as the chair pointed out, it's really 8 and 9 that are kind of driving the impact, we are okay with a 1-story stipulation for lots 8 and 9. I will say that from my perspective, obviously, residential is better instead of a commercial. With a commercial, you have unfettered access, not only to his yard, but to the other lots up on the northeast side of our site. But again, we're happy to stipulate that lots 8 and 9 will be a 1-story home. With respect to the comments that were raised by Ms. Flora, and I must commend her as well. She has been very respectful as we've gone throughout this process. Came to our first neighborhood meeting. We had a good discussion there where we had an understanding, and we continue to have an understanding. I can appreciate her comment about having 2 lots that back up to her home. Unfortunately, I don't think there's anything that I can do about that particular concern. My lots, the lots that Madam Mayor are proposing, are 10 feet wider than what those existing lots are. Those are 40 feet wide on the north. Mine are 50 feet wide on the south. And so when I start looking at lotting and stuff like that, then I create additional concerns. With respect to providing an additional buffer, I'm not sure that that's feasible as well. We'd love to be able to do that, but then we get into questions of kind of a no man's land, eyes back there, and kind of what exactly happens at the end. But what I will focus on is her comments about one-story homes as well. And so what we're willing to propose is an additional stipulation, again, focusing really on primarily lots 12 through 17. That's where we look at those being most affected. And what we would propose is a stipulation that lots numbers 12, 13, 15, and 17 be limited to 1-story homes. And so, that Madam A believes will give them the flexibility to still be able to sell those homes and make them viable, but recognizing and appreciating the concerns that have been made by these two neighbors, we are willing to make those concessions. So again, there were some other things that maybe I need to go into, but I wanted to really drill down on the heart of the concern. So with that, again, I'm happy to answer any additional questions that this board might have.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. In my opinion, it sounds like you addressed the real essence of what the public was concerned about. But let's see, board members, any other questions? So,
I don't have any.
don't, Jim?
I do, yes. Just on the gentleman's property, the single-family residence setbacks in the rear are 6'5", I think. And I can't tell how far his is, but it looks like it's 5 feet. I mean, that's really, like, taking that and then making it single-family, I think actually pushes the houses a lot closer to his side yard than if they were the two-story options. Is that, do I understand that properly?
Through the chair, Board Member Boyle, I believe that is correct, but I can't tell you definitively. We have not, as the floor plans are in development and we don't have those yet, I can't tell you specifically what that setback is going to be with substantial certainty, enough that I would be willing to represent what it is. In theory, yes, a one-story home typically might have a larger footprint, which would require then a little shallower rear yard setback, as opposed to a two-story. And so again, without knowing the finality of those plans, I don't know that I can give you a substantive answer that would address your comment.
Just if you'd remind me, but you are requesting for the single story that the setback be reduced to 5 feet?
That is on the south parcel.
South parcel.
Correct.
Thank you.
Oh, am I looking at the wrong ones?
Chair, Board Member Boyle, on page 3, I believe, of the report, it has the chart and does show 5-foot rear yard setbacks. So you are correct.
Yeah,
But is this, I know these barely have yards at all, and so it's sort of almost like a side setback instead. Staff, I assume you don't have any real issue with it being the back of that house being that close to the side of his house if it's a single-story residence?
Chair, Board Member Boyle, that does get, a little bit tight, but that's the standard as you look in this area, the 5-foot setbacks. So we haven't had a big issue with it.
So it'll be, I mean, it seems like that's what, the houses seem all like they're 10 feet apart, all in this area, so
Right.
it's just,
So it would be the same.
it's just, the house is just turned,
Right.
so,
Correct.
okay.
Thank you, Jim. Any other questions? Jennifer, go ahead.
I just have one question and clarification on the other tract, and where we spoke about lots 12 through 18. And you said that you would agree on 12, 13, 15, and 17? And the reasons for 14, 16, and 18 not to be part of that are, I just wanted to clarify.
Through the chair, Board Member Duff, part of the reason, again, is allowing the market flexibility that I talked about to allow a community to develop as the residents see fit in the area. One of the things that as we start to look at, there is, if I remember correctly, I think that middle home of that is actually a two-story home, and certainly nothing would prevent these neighbors on the north side from knocking down their one-story homes and putting up a two-story home. And so it's, again, trying to have a balance of equities, if you will. And so as I look at what we are proposing, I think restricting, 12 and 13, they represent a unique situation. 14 is kind of almost one-on-one. 15, again, we know that there's an existing pool there. 16, as I look at it, again, I believe that lines up predominantly with that middle home, which is a two-story. And so it's an effort to try to balance what exists with what we're proposing.
So the home that's already built, that's in the middle, that looks like a predominantly desert backyard, is the one that you're saying is a two-story?
Through the chair, Board Member Duff, yes.
Okay. All right. And is that the only two-story on that stretch?
Through the chair, Board Member Duff, yes. I believe that is the only two-story there.
think that's concludes my questions. Thank you.
And if I might just add to that, to clarify, in the end, they could all end up being single-story if that's what purchasers choose.
Yes, they could.
At this point.
Yes, they could. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could we ask Mr. Hyde to come back up and ask his opinion on the suggested stipulation, considering we talked about the setback of the single story
Make sure that
versus
he's really
height.
aware of what he's asking for. I think that'd be fine.
What was the
I was
question?
just curious what your thoughts were. So there was an option of limiting the single story for lots 8 and 9, and then we talked about if it goes to single story, it might become closer to your house than if it were 2-story. And I was just curious what you thought about those two options.
Well, overall concern, majority of the houses that are adjacent to this proposal are somewhere in the range of 8,000 to 9,000 square foot, and that's not a corner lot option. These homes are going to be on a much smaller lot. Graphically looking at it, you're probably somewhere in the 6,000 to 7,000 square foot range. That doesn't leave a lot to be desired in terms of what a home in this area of Mesa, the outskirts of Mesa, has to offer. 2-3 miles away down the road, they're building 3,500 square foot homes on 10,000 square foot lots, and they're selling. So ultimately, I think those two homes, based on the proposal, would be the cheaper homes in the neighborhood. And what does that do to my home's property value? I'm concerned with the noise of construction that close to a home. I'm concerned with the setback being 10 to 15 foot from the wall of my home to whatever may become of the home next to me. I know all my concerns can't deter a property, a redevelopment proposal, because if it makes sense for the community, I would be not doing myself any justice as a citizen of Mesa by opposing all of it. I'm willing to negotiate, but ultimately my concern is privacy for my family.
So would you feel better having a single story a little bit closer to you rather than a 2-story home that could go next to you?
Yes.
Okay, so because I think that Mr. Ray's suggested stipulation is, you don't see that happen very often, so I think that benefits you. At least you can go to that single story and you'll have more privacy than you would with the 2. I don't want to speak for you, but you'll be okay.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I think
it's
just to clarify the fact that you would be dealing with a minimized setback, but single story. Yeah, that is, I would say,
There was never a notion of my family not to understand that something could be there, and that at some point we would have to deal with it. In purchasing a property, you kind of have to think about the future. We know that we've got neighbors to our west that are great neighbors, and they're a close lot line, but they're not looking in our yard from their bedrooms, from their dens, or anything of that nature. So the privacy of looking down into our yard so that my family can enjoy our backyard, which we've grown to love, is my first and foremost concern.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Did you have one, Dan?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I do have one comment to the board. Looking at this particular tract that we're talking about, 7, 8, and 9, my only hesitation, I appreciate that the applicant making the compromise in 8 and 9, but a little bit about 7 is more for the aesthetics part of it, is just having that 2-story kind of towering over the driveway, just because the presentation of the front of your home is kind of is the gateway to your home, and having that kind of towering over that front, having that it takes away, I think, from the presentation of the front of the home to have that 2-story like hovering over the driveway, and that'd be my only.
We do need
Concerned
to
about that.
remember there'd be a bit of a distance, though, with the if it were a 2-story, just mainly for discussion purposes. If there were a 2-story there, it might give something closer to, 30 or so feet from the more or less the driveway, that area.
Mr. Ray, did you want to address that comment?
Yes, if I may, apologies, Board Member Duff, for stepping up. But if the question comes, would you agree to limit Lot 7 to 1 story, the answer would be yes. So we are fine with a single-story restriction for lots 7 through 9.
Thank
In
you.
other words, you don't suggest we continue talking about it anymore? Just kidding.
Well, there are probably a lot of neighbors here would say, why don't you just make them all single story? Okay, Jennifer, is that?
Yes, I just made the comment. Of course, I think as with your background, you're more of the authority on some of those opinions.
No, I think it's a good gesture to do that, and I agree. It would be, in my opinion, it would be the best thing for the house adjacent, so it's a good compromise.
Okay, so then, we'll wait for a motion. We could adjust it to include
I'll make a
7, 8,
motion,
9. Are we ready?
Mr. Chairman, if you're ready.
Yeah, I think so. Let's do that.
I'd like to recommend approval of KZ 17021, 8,500 to 8,800 blocks of East Guadalupe Road, rezone from LCPAD to RS6 PAD and a site plan review. This will allow for the development of a single residence subdivision. Also recommend approval of the companion preliminary plat. The staff recommendation is approval with conditions, along with the applicant's conditions of approval, to limit lots 7, 8, and 9 to single-story homes, and lots 12, 13, 15, and 17 to single-story homes.
Chair, if I may, if you could add
Yes,
just
John.
on the first lots, that's on the west of Jocelyn, and on the other ones, it's the east of Jocelyn, because there are some duplication of those lot numbers.
Okay,
just-
so lots 7, 8, and 9, limited to single-story on the west side of Jocelyn, and lots 12, 13, 15, and 17 on the northern boundary of the development, east of Jocelyn. Okay.
Okay,
Does
thank
that take care of it, Mr. West?
you. Good? All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Dane. Any further discussion? Please vote.
There you go.
There we go. The motion passes unanimously for those that are present today. And thank you. All right. Thank you for your participation, and we'll move on essentially to a companion case, which would be item 4B, Z17-022, District 6, 8500 block of East Guadalupe Road, rezone from RS6 pad to RSL 3.0 pad and site plan review. We'll begin by turning the time over to Mr. Wesley for a presentation, briefly.
Chair, board members, as stated, this is in the 8500 block of East Guadalupe on the south side, rezone from RS6 PAD to RSL, which is a small lot residential 3.0 PAD with a site plan review and has a companion preliminary plat on your agenda. This is about a 10-acre parcel. Proposal is for a 68-lot single residence subdivision. Small lots, 50 by 60 feet in size, has average lot size of a little over 3,400 square feet. So will again be a private drive subdivision, but it does have a 34-foot wide street, so it does allow parking on both sides. They do have 2-car garages. As discussed downstairs with this development, there's been a slight change with the setbacks. Along the east and south lines of the property, they are proposing a 10-foot setback for any 2-story, 5-foot setback for any single-story homes in those areas. It is consistent with the general plan. Staff has no significant issues with the proposal and recommend approval.
Okay, thank you, John. Any questions for staff at this point? If not, Mr. Ray, if you'd come forward.
Starting to figure this out. Good afternoon. Brennan Ray, 702 East Osborne, here on behalf of the applicant from Madame A. Homes. As staff indicated, and as you are well aware, there are multiple requests for this challenging infill piece. It has failed to develop as a residential community since its initial zoning as residential back in 2006. And so Madame A, in approaching this one, has taken a kind of a different approach and a more thoughtful design from my perspective in the way that they are proposing to lay out this community. We believe that it's a great community for future residents, and certainly through a little bit of foresight and planning, we've tried to anticipate and address concerns from the existing neighbors on our south and on our east. We appreciate the feedback that we've received from staff along the way as we've talked about this, and we are okay with the conditions contained in the staff report and would request this body's approval or recommendation to approval to the council in accordance with staff's recommendation. What you'll see up on your screen now is the proposed site plan. And I'll bounce to the landscape plan and then bounce back to the site plan. One of the things that Madame A looked at when they were developing this community is who their demographics were. And in this particular case, it is kind of the millennial buyer, the young family, the professionals, those people that are looking for a home, but as has been discussed before this board, the profiles have changed in that residents these days aren't necessarily looking for the rear yards. So what Madame A has done in focusing on this particular plan is create what I'll call a large front yard through the open space area. We far exceed the open space requirements on this particular site, and you can see the number of amenities that we have proposed, including a pool, tot lot, and a large lawn area. Again, with the idea that this kind of becomes a social living space for the residents with these pocket lots. We are compliant with the RSL design guidelines. There are 5 required elements. Those are identified in your staff report, and I won't run through them, but we satisfy those. So as I bounce back to the site plan, and just a bit of clarification, you see a purple strip running along our east and south. Those are for lots 1 through 21. So our typical lot size for this community is 50 by 60. However, in the purple lot and the purple shaded location, those lots are 10 feet deeper. So they are 50 by 70. And so that's done on purpose to create some additional separation from our neighbors on our south and east. When we had our neighborhood meeting on May 31st, there were 2 residents that showed up, and one of them was immediately adjacent to us on the south. After speaking with her, I think it's fair to characterize it that she, first and foremost, wants to see nothing there, but that she was fine with the residential. But then when we explained that this was an all 2-story community, there was some concern. And so coming out of that neighborhood meeting, Madame A put their heads together and internally decided, you know what, we're going to have to figure out how to come up with a different alternative. And so they are proposing that this community will be a mix of 1- and 2-story homes. And so, again, going back to the modification that John indicated, our setbacks along our eastern and southern boundaries for lots 1 through 20 is 10 feet for a 2-story and 5 feet for a single story. And so with that, again, I can go into as much detail as you would like about this particular site plan, but I think staff's done a good job in their staff report and the presentation at the study session that I won't belabor it. But I know that there's at least one resident that would like to speak. Be happy to hear what he has to say and reserve the opportunity to come up in response to any questions or concerns that he might raise. So with that, we again would request this board's recommendation for approval to the City Council. Happy to answer any questions.
Board members, any questions for the applicant yet? Okay, we'll call you back.
Thank you.
Have notice from 2 individuals wishing to speak. We'll begin with Damian Bench. You're opposed.
Thanks for hearing me. My name is Damian Bench. I live in the, one of those houses that's on the other side of the purple strip, 8550 East Anza Avenue. One of my favorite things in the world is to come home, go out in the backyard. You see where I'm going, right? I got a wife, I got a little daughter, a son who has a swimming pool. And to imagine a house, possibly 3, 4 houses, 2 stories, 10 feet on the other side of the fence is heartbreaking. And, you know, it's currently zoned, I believe, for the same kind of neighborhood that I have. And I'm happy with that. You get a lot of single stories, the setbacks are much bigger. So privacy is my main concern. And that's what I got. Also, no, there's another thing. If I go to sell the house and someone goes and looks in the backyard and there's a wall of windows, they're not gonna buy my house, they're gonna buy someone else's house. So it impacts my property value, for sure.
Thank you for that. Could you clarify, unless I just missed it, which lot number are you in?
I'm not sure.
If I may, maybe that might help.
I'm on the other side of 12.
The other side, so directly back,
Right or left? Oh, just directly back, okay.
due south of 12?
Yeah, he's pointing to directly south of 12. So he's the 1, 2, 3, 4th
Fourth from the
lot
end?
from the end.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
All right.
Is that,
Thank you for that.
okay.
Next, we have Mary Hushman. If you'd like to come forward, you are opposed. And you're going to provide your explanation why you're opposed.
A short one. Hi, I'm Mary Huseman. I live at 8517 East Portobello Circle. I'm not affected directly by the ones around the purple colors, but I do live about 4 streets to the south of there. It's still going to affect me. I'm going to read this because I put a lot of thought into it. I am opposing the building of the houses as planned because of privacy issues and the decreased home values in our existing subdivision. I've lived in the Eastridge subdivision for over 7 years now, and I've lived in Mesa for 32 years. I've owned 5 different houses. This one is number 5 in Mesa, 2 of them being 2-story houses. Both of those houses, the builders were very conscious of how they helped the homeowners that weren't in 2-story houses. They didn't build them behind 1-story houses. 2 stories were behind 2 stories. The other one, there were 2 stories and 1 stories, but there were no 2-story windows on the backside near the backyard. There were windows for sunlight, but there was no direct where you could stand up there and be peering out to what's going on next door. All my other 3 houses were 1-story. The one I'm in now is as well. And when I was looking for those houses, I wouldn't even look at a house that had a 2-story behind it. And that's because of privacy. And on top of it, I was told by all the real estate agents that took me around looking at, I can't tell you how many houses, that it's very common for people not to want to buy a house that has a 2-story house behind it. I wouldn't even look. And they said that those houses, they called them being priced right, which means they were priced low, okay? So on top of it, those houses also stayed on the market a whole lot longer than the houses that didn't have that. So within this area, there are 13 1-story houses in my subdivision that will have the proposed 21 houses directly behind them. So that's like 1.5 houses for every one of our houses. My house has 30 feet from the common wall to the back of my house. And with those being only 5 to 10 feet, you might as well be in my backyard. And then on the top of it being a 2-story, it's going to feel like you've got an apartment complex in your backyard. There's no two ways about it. And actually, it's worse because apartments don't build that close to walls. They stay back so that they're not invading the people around them. All these existing owners around there will lose all their privacy with that big wall of houses. And even more so, if there's windows in the back, with today's obsession with videos and taking pictures of everything that you see and posting them online, their privacy is really bad. All I can say is I'm really glad that's not my house up there. And most of the residents, as he said, you're not going to enjoy your backyard anymore, especially if you have a pool. Who wants to go out? That's why you have your own pool in the backyard, for privacy. They won't have it. Now, I'm not opposed to houses being back there. Actually, I'd like it because it'll help cut down on the dirt in the area. It'll make it look nicer. I totally agree with that. But if there's restrictions that only allow 1-story homes up against it, would be the best thing. So I do oppose the building of them as planned because the existing homes will lose their selling ability and they will be forced to price well under its true value. And I've seen that. But that in turn will lower the price of all the homes in the area, which includes mine, because the housing market uses comps to help determine the value. So if they lower that house's price by $25,000 to $30,000 just to get it sold, mine goes down $25,000 to $30,000. That I already know because I've had that happen. So my best hope is that the city of Mesa will help protect the current residents that are already here and that have been here for years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right, Mr. Ray?
Chair, members of the board, there were two things that I heard, I think primarily, and if I missed, please correct me. I think obviously consistent with the other case that we just heard was a question of privacy. And that's always a tough one to balance, because I could make a good argument that they actually have better privacy with the community that's there now as opposed to just open fields and anyone can come in and out of there. But again, that's an argument that could be made. The other thing is that with respect to this proposed plan as compared to the one before, I know that the case in 2006, they were proposing the same lot width as we are. That approval had 50-foot wide lots. We are proposing 50-foot wide lots. The difference between the 2006 case and our case, obviously, is the depth of the lots. And so I know that at least in one aspect, we're consistent with that prior approval. But again, as I stated at the beginning, we've tried to be very respectful of the privacy of the residents by making those lots, again, the purple shaded lots that appear up on the PowerPoint, 10 feet deeper. Again, whereas before we didn't have a 1-story floor plan, Madam A is in the process of designing that 1-story floor plan. And certainly we've heard the feedback from the neighbors of trying to minimize windows and stuff like that. And that's something that we will take into consideration as we go through the design process. It's not something that I can guarantee that we'll just have blank walls back there, but we understand that. So I'm not too sure how much more I can say on that. With respect to property values, again, that's a slope that we could probably spend all day talking about both sides of it, whether it's an increase, a decrease, a no change at all. So I will probably defer on that question as well. So again, with that, I'm happy to answer any additional questions that the board may have, but we would request approval, again, in accordance with staff's recommendation and with the plans that we've presented.
So, Mr. Ray, just to clarify, whereas we added some stipulations on the earlier case, in this situation, we are not. Is that correct? It would just leave it as proposed in terms of the single-story dwellings on the...
If you'll permit me 1 minute to
Absolutely.
confer with my client, thank you. Chair, members of the board, this is a little bit of a unique situation as compared to the previous case, where I know that I had impacted areas, and there we were only talking really at the end of the day of a handful of lots. When I look at here, I'm talking about 21 lots of a 63-lot subdivision, and so to place a restriction that says this specific lot will be a one-story versus that lot, that's cumbersome and I believe would be counterproductive to allowing the market to dictate what it is. That said, one of the things that we would be willing to offer is a stipulation for lots 1 through 21 that would say no more than two-story homes can be built side by side. Again, that's not to say that they'll all be two-story homes, and that's not to say they'll be all single-story homes, but at least there is an assurance to the neighbors that they will know that at least a third of those lots effectively will be single-story homes. Again, going back to what I said in the other case, and I'll repeat it here, we believe that the market is the best indicator and dictate what should go where. And based on, again, anecdotal information, the one-story plans are popular. And so we would expect that, again, with them offering that would be for this site as well. So I believe that answers one of the questions. Again, happy to answer any additional ones that you or others may have.
Well, thank you for that. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. So I'm looking at the preliminary floor plans and elevations. These are much smaller lots. I'm just with architecture, trying to figure out how a one-story plan would even work on such a small lot. And I guess I'm a little uncomfortable not knowing what the final plans are anyway, but trusting staff on that. But if these are two-car homes, there's almost no room for anything else if you're just doing single stories on these lots. Do you have a better idea of what the one-story lots might look like, or have you put one-story lots in or houses in lots this size before? Is there a better way to get a read on what those are even going to look like?
Through the chair, Board Member Boyle, at this particular minute, no, there isn't. Because again, that was something that was just decided in terms of a one-story floor plan about a week ago, that they would try to make a run at it and make that work. And so because we have made that commitment, not only to staff, but now publicly on the record, we're going to have to do it. It's not a stipulation, but I can assure you that if it's something that I've said, that Mattamy has authorized me to say, then it's going to be done. And so I don't know what that looks like yet. I'm not even sure that Mattamy knows with 100% certainty what that looks like. But based on their preliminary review of it, knowing that they do a good job building homes, I believe that they are confident that it will be a good-looking home that'll be one story that will satisfy what the city requires from a code-based perspective and will satisfy what their residents are looking for.
Staff, can you vouch for his track record on being able to pull that kind of thing off? I mean, we're kind of voting blind on this one. So what's your thought on that?
Chair, Board Member Boyle, both Mr. Ray and Mattamy Homes are people who bring a lot of projects through Mesa, and they have solid reputations. And so I have no real reason to doubt that they will make every effort to come up with good floor plans and good elevations consistent with what's been stated. But I also understand your concern. These are very small lots, and coming up with a single-story home on these small lots meeting the setbacks will be a bit of a challenge. I know Mr. Ray's going to want to shoot me later, but there is always the option, if you are uncomfortable, of continuing the case, giving them the opportunity to come back with some design so that you can see them before you take action. We do have, I was going to bring this up a little bit later just for the folks that have been here, regardless of which way this one goes, but also based on the last one, if any of those folks are still here. These do go on to City Council for final decision. Given the council's summer break, these will not get to council till later in August. Coming back to the July P&Z board meeting will not make a whole lot of difference in timing for council. Delay it only about a week or a couple of weeks, I believe. So it doesn't make as big an impact as it might otherwise.
Brennan, how much will it ruin your life if I want to continue this for a month so that we can just get an idea of what would go in?
Through the chair, Board Member Boyle, I'd have to confer with my client on a continuance. The thing that I would add before we get to that point is I think we've got two things that will ensure the quality of the design. Number one, staff did a good job vouching, if you will, for that. Madame Mays is certainly a very reputable builder. The other thing that we've got in place in terms of the quality are the design guidelines. And those are there to give staff the guidance to ensure that it is a quality development, a high quality development, something that will be there. You saw me step back. I know that preliminarily in terms of square footage, Madame A believes that that single-story floor plan would be right around 1,600 square feet. But again, what the details of that look like, I'm not sure that we know. But again, I think there's enough there to give some level of comfort as to the direction moving forward. But again, happy to continue the dialogue.
So Tim,
Does anyone else,
what's that?
is everyone else on the board comfortable with just letting them kind of go as it is, or do you guys have any reservations about this? If I'm the only one, then.
I'll speak up. I'm actually comfortable with letting it move forward. I have no reason to doubt that it won't come up, and I do see the challenge. But let's give them time to figure it out. Let's not stymie the project. I'm sure they've got other concerns in terms of acquiring the land and everything that are of important that may not be apparent to us sitting here at this table.
So just to clarify, what stipulation are we? Or are we? No stipulations?
Well, I would just say that Mr. Ray has offered on those lots that are highlighted in that blue-purple color that no more than two two-story dwellings will be put side by side. So that force some sort of staggering, but yet allow the market to dictate. And my thought is that's a big chunk of the total project. And if we were to stipulate all single family on that, my hat goes off to him how you can even make this work and end up with a good looking project that meets market demand. I'm very uncomfortable stipulating something that extreme. I think their proposal is actually very reasonable and actually very good on their part.
Right, and this is mostly going off the vouching of them, but we run into that thing we ran with that other project a while back where if you make it all one story, what they want, that actually is often lower cost because you can't have the same square footage, so you kind of just catch 22.
And you bring values down because you got a small, you get price per square foot
Right.
goes up.
You force them into
overall-
one stories, and then that brings everyone's land value down even more, potentially, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And there are two sides to that argument on value. And you're totally correct. We can go anywhere with that. And at the end of the day, we're still everybody in their corner, So that's my 2 cents. Anybody else?
No, I'm just surprised that you can even offer one story. Actually, just looking at some of the proposed square feet on the main floor, 735, and upper floor living 1,000. So forgo the 1,000, and still with the setbacks, you don't have a lot to play with. So kudos to you if you can make a one story on that lot.
I just feel a little bad because the adjacent property owner to Lot 12 there came out with similar concerns as the folks on the first case. Would you be willing to focus in on Lot 12 to make that single story if the single story product works out, or at least work with him a bit more to show him what you come up with, if single story is possible, or especially if it's not, so that he knows, since he came out to express himself?
Through the chair, Board Member Dahlke, we're happy to continue the discussion. One of my concerns, if I do say, all right, well, lot 12, at what point does that slope stop? At what point do I get all of the neighbors coming out and saying, well, we want the same deal that he got? And so then I'm back into a potential scenario where I'm needing to restrict all of the lots, 1 through 21, which I would agree with the chair that that's pretty extreme given the size of this community. And so not knowing exactly where that's going to break in terms of 2 stories together and 1 story, and it might be a scenario where I have 5 1-stories side by side because that's what the market dictates. And I'm just a little bit hesitant to specifically say, yeah, we can restrict lot 12 to a single story, again, without putting ourselves on a real slippery slope.
Thought might be on that, if we were to even approve something like that. I can only imagine what the turnout will be at the council meeting.
I would be inclined at this point to, I'm not sure why we'd stipulate it in general at all. It's one of those things in this case where we can't know. I agree. You can't throw them all down. It doesn't necessarily work. And I could see how that wouldn't pencil out. If we were to throw a stipulation on this that one guy gets a single story behind it and one doesn't, the people here speaking may not, even with this stipulation, arrive at any benefit.
That's true.
So it's hard for me to push the developer in this case in any way if we can't generally come to a consensus. Ultimately, this solution is following the recommendations of staff, and I don't know, I have trouble stipulating if we can't get focused in. We can't drive them all down,
That is true. So perhaps
Just
the idea
saying.
is, we've got notes here.
Council
along
may
with
see a
this.
different group,
Totally.
so.
And our comments would go forward and council could pick it up. We would just leave it the way it is.
Just hopefully the gentleman understands, why did this happen in the case before mine and not now? So there's a little bit of differences. I think before you knew exactly what the single-story product is, and here we don't. So I just wanted to just make sure that you understood why we didn't do this exact same thing possibly. I don't know what the motion is going to be, but just so he's aware.
Mm-hmm.
Take your concerns to council if you don't, if you aren't happy with what the vote ends up being today. So that's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, at this point, I believe we're ready for a motion. Would someone like to make that?
Yeah, I could make that motion. Regarding KC 17022 on District 6, rezone from RS6 PAD to RSL 3.0 PAD and site plan review. I motion that we approve this case as stipulated with the staff recommendation, and that we also approve the accompanying preliminary plat associated to 5B within our agenda today.
And to clarify, you're not adding any additional stipulations?
I'm not.
Okay, thank you, Dane. Is there a second?
I'm sorry, did the applicant, though, offer a specific stipulation, or was that already in there? The lots 1 through 21?
No, that was offered, and then Dane actually is going contrary to that with the argument he just
Oh, I see.
mentioned.
I'm sorry.
That it doesn't really prove anything because the nature of this project is different. So I'm ready for a second to that motion.
Okay, I'm just going to throw it in there. Just pausing on the motion. The lots on the east side appear to be a lot larger lots than on the south side. No? Okay.
Could we see that again?
They look the same to me.
Through the chair, Board Member Duff, the purplish, bluish lots, those are all 50 by 70s. If there's anything out of scale, I apologize, but
Okay, so they're all the same lots all the way around the 1 through 21?
correct.
What about on the adjoining lots, the neighboring lots? Are they all about the same?
I'm not sure that on the existing lots.
that are not, that align this project to the south and the east? Because it looked like those setbacks on all of the adjoining lots are all about the same as well, visually. Does that make?
Yeah, the only reason I had brought it up
Yeah,
is
what-
it appeared maybe, and it could have been just a distortion of it being larger lots and looking like the houses that backed up on that east side maybe had larger setbacks. Again, it could be a distorted view, and if there's any compromise, maybe on that south side. But I don't think that's really accomplishing anything, and in those lots are not necessarily any larger. So, never mind.
Okay, so
Back to the motion.
back to the motion. I'm still waiting for a second.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
For you and staff and our legal counsel. So I've never been in this position before. I personally like the stipulation that Mr. Ray suggested. And so if we do get a second in agreements with Board Member Assel, then my choice would be I could vote against that.
That's correct.
But if there's not a second, then another motion can be.
Correct. At this point, it's been quite a while. We haven't heard a second to the motion, so it might be about time for the chair to determine that motion dies and ask for a second. But
That would be just fine,
Motion.
but I would remind board members that this project is different from the other one we heard about. It's a totally different orientation. Keep that in mind. I'll ask again, is there a second? Okay, then I guess I'll entertain another motion. And that one, we'll drop that one.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval. Do I restate the whole case again? Okay, for the record. Recommend approval of C-17-022, a rezone from RS6 PAD to RSL 3.0 PAD and a site plan review to allow for the development of a single residence subdivision. With the staff recommended approvals, conditions of approval. In addition, Mr. Ray's stipulation of lots 1 through 21, there will be no more than two-story homes that will be built side by side. And also recommend approval of the preliminary plat.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I'll try again. Is there a second on this motion?
I'm happy to second your motion.
I guess we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Any discussion? Are we good? Well, let's vote. Okay, motion passes unanimous amongst those that are present. Thank you.
Huh? That's okay. That's okay. That's how it needs to be.
Can I say thank you, Michelle? For that last part. We appreciate it.
Okay, we'll move on to item 4D. This is case Z17-024, the 2300 block of East University Drive, South Side, rezoned from RSL 2.5 BIZ to RM2 PAD and site plan review. And we will first hear from staff. Leslie?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to rezone a property in the 2300 block of East University. It's located east of Gilbert Road on the south side of University. It's a 2.5 acre parcel that the properties around it primarily developed in the 70s and early 80s. It's been somewhat bypassed. The request is to rezone from RSL 2.5 BIZ to RM2 PAD with site plan review and a preliminary plat to allow for a 20-lot attached single residence duplex style subdivision. The applicant has been working with staff. We're down to some conditions of approval that we are not in agreement on. The applicant's been working with staff to try to provide some enhanced quality for the subdivision, which we've been asking for based on the neighborhood and the intent to, for the duplex homes with the garage forward design that they've proposed. Staff's concern is that we maintain a level of quality for the neighborhood that in 20 years is still a great place to live. People want to be there. What items can we incorporate into the development to enhance that quality? We came up with a list of conditions of approval. The applicant has agreed to most of those items with the exception of one. Staff had recommended that they introduce a different, smoother stucco surface for the front areas of the home that are more visible from the street and to the neighbors on the street versus the Spanish lace, which is fairly standard throughout Mesa, but it doesn't have as rich an appearance when you're in the neighborhood itself. We are seeing a trend towards more of the smooth face stucco in many neighborhoods, such as Eastmark and some other neighborhoods that have been coming in. We've been seeing a mixture of stucco surfaces. Sometimes there's one floor plan that will have one type of stucco surface versus a different floor plan. Maybe they do have the Spanish lace, but there's a mixture. It's blended with some other things. The applicant has proposed a condition in place of the one that staff had for item for 8F, that they would be willing to provide the smoother stucco on the pop-outs and the wainscots for the 2 plans that they have out there, which is also something staff has seen on projects. So the applicant would like to talk about that. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Any questions for staff currently? All right, we will wait. The applicant.
Can I ask one real
yes,
quick? Are we going to end up in sort of a stucco detailed conversation here about like what's good stucco and bad stucco? Is that the sticking point, or am I still not quite understanding? Are you the stucco expert? You're gonna.
Well, I guess
I
we're
do
gonna-
know a
we're gonna
stucco
determine
expert, and his arms are about that big. Sean Lake, 1744 South Bella Vista, here on behalf of Doug Sweeney, a personal friend and longtime friend and developer of this project. Many of you may remember a few months back, Doug was here on the north side of this property. There's an acre and a half north of there that he brought forward to this board and was approved unanimously and unanimously approved by the council. And then his thought was, well, I've got an acre and a half on the north that I'm doing 16 of these units on. Why don't I capitalize on the economies of scale and use my same models on the north side right across the street and build on that 2.2 acres to the south? It makes sense. And so that was how we approached this project and originally presented this before council. Before I go there, I just want to say a couple of things. This is not a piece of property in Eastmark. This is not in Southeast Mesa. This is a piece of property on University between Gilbert and Lindsay that has been vacant for 30 plus years that I'm aware of. 34 years ago, I mean, I used to drive past here as I was headed out to work on properties in this area, framing and whatever my dad told me to do. But I can remember going past this property. This property has been vacant for decades. And since I moved my family here 22 years ago and have been working in downtown Mesa 22 years, I've driven past this property on my way home from working. And I've always wondered, will something ever develop here? You know, what's going to happen? What do you do with a small little piece of property that's kind of carved out, as you can see, with office buildings on one side, a medical office building that kind of wraps around. It's got condos in the back and patio homes and 1970s and 80s homes on the other side. It's really the classic infill that you want to try to encourage development on. That's kind of the basis that we're coming forward here. Mr. Sweeney is working on this property, and in all honesty, I mean, the price per square foot, we talk about raising property values, raising the value of homes. The price per square foot of these homes will far exceed the homes in this area. We've done market analysis as we're proposed. So this is a good quality project that we're bringing forward. The thought originally, as Doug had pointed out, was to use the same models and just sell across the street. We only have 20 lots. This is not a big piece of property or 20 different units. We presented that to staff. Staff didn't, initially we started working with them, and then they wanted more changes and more changes. And it's almost as if where we are today with stucco is like the last piece of straw on the top of a giant pile of straw on the camel's back. We've made substantial changes to these units that are not on or were approved to the north side. such that you can see on the plan, we've grouped driveways. We've actually, instead of having all front-facing garages, we have side entry garages. So we flip-flopped the entry into the garage to the side of the home. I don't know if this works here there we go. You can see units 2 and 3 have side entry garages. So those garages don't face the street. You have units 6 and 7 are the same thing, and units 14 and 15 are the same thing. Trying to work with staff to address some of their concerns, even though we had already approved on the north side, that's the exact same product, we are changing it, and we're having to change and then have to explain as people come through our models how they're a little bit different to the south. And so we're trying to keep some uniformity between the north and the south, and that's kind of been the heartburn of what we're working through. We agree with staff. We worked extensively with staff coming up with a significant amount of changes to the detail. And where we are now is we're down to stucco. We've agreed to everything else. And we're down to stucco, and the difference between the stucco that is provided on the north project that was fine and is provided through most of the city, but staff wanted to condition the type of stucco that we use. Now, I've been doing projects in Mesa for a long time. I have never seen a condition of approval requiring a kind of stucco. I'm not familiar, not Eastmark, not Cadence, I'm not going to go through the projects I've done over the last 22 years, but I've never seen. So in my belief, this would be a record, a history-setting moment for the city of Mesa where all of a sudden, in a zoning case, we're going to dictate the type of stucco that we're going to require on the exterior house, as opposed to letting the market decide. We're more than willing to offer a certain type of stucco as an option, like they do at Eastmark, like they do everywhere else in the city of Mesa. But we do have heartburn that we would be required to do something that nobody else in the city of Mesa is required to do. A type of stucco, quite frankly, that is found on this building, that is found on the Arts Center, that is found on the library across the street, that is found on the fire station #1 just down the street, that is found all over the city of Mesa. And so that gives us a little heartburn. You can tell I'm a little bit passionate. I should calm down and smile more, as my wife says when she watches me on Channel 11. And my children say, boy, you were just a little exercised up there. I know I'm going to hear it when I go home. But we would agree with staff with our revised condition that talks about providing, it's condition F, provide sand finished stucco or similar upgraded surface on all pop-outs and wainscots designed for all elevations. We think that's a good compromise. We think that, albeit the first time we've ever agreed to a stucco finish, it's not requiring us to do it for the entire house, which would be a precedent set the first time in Mesa and require something of us that nobody else is required to do. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Lake, I do have a question. So are you or are you not a stucco expert?
I am not a stucco expert.
Let's see those arbs, see what they look like.
I have tried to do stucco, and I am not that talented.
So then I just have a probing question. Personally, I'm indifferent. But why not? Is this a cost factor that could materially change the project, or is it more about staff overstepping bounds? So is it an issue?
There's a lot of factors that got me exercised on this one. One of them certainly is a cost is an element, but it's also about a project that we just did on the north and were approved unanimously both here and the council. And we're trying to maintain some consistency between the units because this will be one HOA between the two. These two projects will have one HOA that maintains the both of them, so we're trying to have some consistency. We're going to model to the north a certain thing, then you have to try to explain to them that it's different to the south, and then you're explaining to the ultimate homeowners, well, why is the south different from the north? We pay the same HOA fee. Why is it different? What's going on? There's a lot of factors, not to mention the whole regulatory issue. That's probably my personal issue, is that it's requiring this property owner to do something that it has never required anybody else. quite frankly, if the city wants to do away with lay stucco, which is what the majority of buildings in this city are built with, then the city needs to do it through a subdivision design or a uniform requirement, as opposed to picking and choosing who has to do it and who doesn't. That to me seems unfair. If we want to do away with lay stucco in the city of Mesa, let's adopt changes to the subdivision design guidelines or a mandatory subdivision design standards that would outlaw stucco or lay stucco in the city of Mesa.
Okay, so
Then everybody would have to live by the same playing field.
Okay, calm down. You're doing good. But while you're sitting, let me just give staff a chance to respond to that. Is this unprecedented?
Mr. Chairman, there are cases where we have had stipulations where we have talked to the product and the style and the mixture of stucco textures on the house. We do have conditions like that. Eastmark does have requirements where they do limit the use of the Spanish lace. That is through their board.
Private restriction, which we agreed to an option.
We do have a staff member on that board. They have a separate set of guidelines for their product review. It's not the standard process. So that is part of their approval, or part of their design guidelines, which are part of their planned community development. So it's not totally unprecedented. The difference here is that we do have a very garage-forward product, whereas most single-family houses in Mesa, well, any that come forward that are detached and are in the RSL or the R1 designations, they need to have a livable area forward with the garage back. This particular product is coming forward with a very garage-forward, design. So staff was trying to come up with ways that we could increase the quality and the feel of the development. Like I said, long-term.
So if I might add, and personally, I don't recall the elevations of the project to the north. So if I were to drive down the streets of the two projects, would this look much different? Even though they're the same HOA, it will have the look and feel of a different project? Is that
Mr.
correct?
Chairman, it will be the same product. With that particular neighborhood, this issue didn't come up. It is the demographic around it, as well as the access to schools, all those things make that one a little more sellable, which I think the applicant would agree with. So it's kind of this balance that they're trying to find with the project to the south. We had an RSL 2.5 BIZ approved there a year ago with a higher quality product. So we have that where there was a previous approval there. However, they weren't able to make the project pencil out because of costs. But you do have a demographic around this one that's a little harder. So you have to find that balance where we have, a need to improve the quality of this one because it's not going to be as easy to sell. That other one is also central to a large open space in the middle where they all face it. This is a long street that just kind of L's down to a cul-de-sac. So
it does have a different feel to it.
it does. It's going to have a
That's my
different
question.
feel. So we were trying to improve the feel of this one. So it is different situations to some degree. However, we do understand they're going to be sister subdivisions and have a joint HOA. So we do appreciate several of the improvements that they've agreed to for this neighborhood. They've also stated they would be adding into that other one, which is really generous of them. So that part's been good.
So it's not like the
So-
staff has anything against lace stucco, it's just a matter of kind of progressing this trend we see happening to a different kind, more modern looking.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may just add just a little bit to that discussion too. The applicant is asking for planned area development. So the PAD does carry with it certain requirements. And it is, the intent is to provide for just creative, high-quality development. And then one of the other standards below that is building design, site design amenities that create a unique and more sustainable alternative to conventional development. And so, based on that, as we have looked at this and been working with the applicant, we've had challenges with their basic design, and they've done a great job of coming back with modifications and keep chipping away at some of the concerns that we've had. And certainly we've gotten down to this last one that may seem like, a petty little thing. Why didn't we just go ahead and agree to it? We were scheduled here, and, we could have, if this would have been a week ago, would have come down to it, hadn't written the staff report yet. We probably, might have gone a different way with this. But instead of us just continuing to make all these decisions for you, since it's already here for your decision, we felt like we might be talking about it anyway. We left this one out there for your consideration. and give you that opportunity to help us understand and decide what contributes to that high quality, how important the
So you're letting us
stucco
can
is.
decide whether or not we change the life expectancy of Lace stucco in
That's
the
correct.
city of Mesa. I get it. Just kidding. All right, hold on. Board members, any questions for the applicant at this point before I turn it over to the public? We do have one card.
Can we veer off stucco just for 1 minute? Well, I'm sure we'll get back to it. These side-loaded garages, which I think is great, how do you back up out of that? Do you have to like back up and turn as you're backing out? Or is there space to back up and then kind of do a three-point turn? I don't see the numbers on here, so I'm just curious how you get out of that garage.
Great question, Board Member Boyle. So for example, on if you look on lots 14 and 15, they would have a shared driveway with a side entry garage located right there and right there. And it would be the same for the other units that I mentioned that have the side entry garages. So you would access, there we go. You would drive in and then drive into your driveway. You would back out and leave, same way. So what we had, one of the conditions that talked about.
Just real quick, so you're turning in and then pulling back, you're in reverse
Yeah, so it's a
and
shared
turning.
driveway between the two units. And so one of the conditions that Leslie was working with us on talked about providing some type of paver strip, and so, or a decorative concrete or colored concrete or something. So we want to work with our engineers to create some type of turning radius so we know that we can put like a decorative paver line across, say, right at this point, so we know that when people pull in, they can't park beyond that line, so that it becomes a clear zone. So you can't just pull up to the side of your garage and mean to run in to get your sunglasses, but you end up staying 2 hours and blocking the other guy in his garage. And so that's where one of the conditions that talks about that delineation of pavers or colored concrete would work out, and then we would build that in so that people understand you can't park in the driveway beyond this certain line. And that's how that would function. Really what it does is it pulls a lot of the garages off the street for all those units. I was showing some of these elevations. That's the elevation. Staff also talked about the garage dominance. So there's not standard garage doors. I mean, quite frankly, these garage doors are nicer than my garage door in my home, 2 miles away. So we think it's a very attractive product. It's very nice. And also keep in mind the scale of this project. We're not a 20-acre project like you've had on your agenda. This is 2.2 acres. It's a street that ends in a little cul. It's a short little infill bypass leftover property. So it's not like you're going to see a canyon effect of acres upon acres upon acres of an 80-acre community. You've got 20 homes, 10 buildings. So.
Right. And my concern, I mean, I've done a number of side garages before too, and my rule of thumb is always about 30 feet of backup space and turnout space, but curving in and curving out is also concerning. Is that sort of typical now, though? I haven't seen a lot of that particular maneuver, given that backing out is so dangerous anyway.
Mr. Chairman, Board Member Boyle, we're going to be working with them through subdivision technical review. We've had that same concern that we can make sure the radiuses work. I know the applicant is also concerned about that because we want this to be successful. So they're working on some radius details so we can make sure that we can make it work. And so we'll have to fine tune that and make sure it works as it goes through the subdivision technical review process.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. And I will give you an opportunity to respond to any questions that come up or comments from our public. And we have one card, that would be Mike, is it Lemire? Did I say that correctly, Lemire? Lemire. Thank you. You don't
Thanks very
indicate
much.
whether you're in favor of or opposed to the project?
Generally, I'm in favor.
Okay.
My name is Mike Lemire. I live at 2301 East University, which is the Eastbrook Stratford property just south of the proposed. Generally, I'm in favor. I think it's good for the general area, for the economics, and I think it'll help with some of the Gilbert University intersection issues. But we have some concerns, and I'm here representing a number of the folks from the community. First, when Mission Park 1 was brought up, there was no traffic impact study. There aren't that many buildings going up. It's the proximity of the driveways that's of concern, because right now you have 22nd Place, Mission Park North, storage unit, 2301, this new unit, and 23rd Place, all within about 300 feet of each other. So if you've ever tried to get out of 2301 and make a left onto University in any kind of traffic, it's tough. Same with 22nd Place. I think that's one concern. What we'd ask is that they look at where the driveways are actually placed, not kill the project. Second is, obviously, with any construction project, you have dust and debris and all of that. We just want to make sure that those are addressed. Third is the sewer line that they're tapping into is the easement runs through our property. It runs right through, let me see if I can put this mouse on here, right here. This is the easement for the sewer line. So we just want the commitment that when they go in and tap in there, which we understand is the plan, that there's a commitment to repair that and repair any irrigation that's broken on our property. Last is throughout this whole area, and he's right, this area has been vacant for years. I've lived in this community for 13 years now. Thank you for the glowing review of our property. We can't all afford those $350,000 homes. But the one thing that we are concerned about is that there are a number of mature trees along the edge here. We would like to see if any of those can be reused or salvaged, particularly along this wall. We have some mature trees in there now. I think the plan currently is to just rip everything out. We'd like to know if there's some way that can be addressed. Here, we have mature trees, and if you're in this unit, which I'm not, this is what you're going to be looking at from now on. So those are really the main areas of concern. Again, generally in favor of the property going in there. I think it will help the overall appearance of University there. It's not real high end, and I think these units will look actually very good, but we do have those concerns. I went to the neighborhood meeting back in, I think it was April, and kind of raised the same deal. I didn't know about Mission Property or Mission Park 1, never received a letter on that one. So, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lake, would you like to respond?
Chairman, board members, I don't know that there's anything to respond. Obviously, sewer and all of that, we're more than willing to, we would do that anyway. The tree, we can look at the trees behind 9 and 10. We've actually got about over a 20-foot setback back there, but we'd have to look at that. I don't know that we can salvage them in this area because that's our retention area. Right in this area. We haven't done even an analysis of those trees.
So would you at least take a look at it?
We can absolutely, we'll take a look at that, absolutely. As far as the street and driveway connection, again, that's just a unique challenge that we have. We don't have any directly opposite of, say, 23rd or 22nd driveway across from us. It's just because it's an infill bypass piece, you just put your access road in the middle. There's not much we can really do with that, but we have worked with the City of Mesa staff, and Transportation's reviewed that, and we'll further review it through subdivision technical review. So,
okay, thank you. Board members, any questions for the applicant or staff at this point? Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we ready for a motion, or do we want to deliberate a little bit? Tim, I see that scowl on your face. That must mean something. I'm learning.
It's you're picking up on it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the stucco thing. I'm all for everyone in the city saying, you know what, I don't think this looks good. Let's make something that looks better. Like, I think that's yes, more of that, right? Like, I'm hoping to always champion that. To the level of stucco, I'm a little, less interested in it, though I've seen bad lay stucco jobs and good lay stucco jobs, so I don't know. I mean, even looking it up online just to refresh my memory, there's some really beautiful stuff and some stuff that shouldn't, stuff that doesn't even belong in Gilbert, right? So the other thing that I think would be great is if we took a stand on stucco, and then everyone in New York would be like, yeah, those people in Mesa are finally standing up to stucco, right? Like, that's the one thing they know about Mesa building. So I think that'd be funny too. But I guess I am, if we go back, just the last couple projects, we put a lot of trust in staff and staff's opinion, and they spend a lot of time thinking about this stuff. And so I guess at the moment, I'm in the trust the staff's determination on this thing and what they feel on it and kind of move towards that direction. What do you guys all think?
Good question. What do we all think?
I don't know anything about stucco. I don't have a stucco house. I am not an expert whatsoever. I don't even know what the difference is between these two. So I hate to hold up a whole project on something that I don't feel familiar with. So, but I know what you're saying and what you're trying to do, but I'm kind of leaning towards letting the applicant go forward with the sand finish stucco as a,
Basically, the proposal that they've come up with.
Yes.
Not quite to the extent staff is asking for. So that, okay.
And I don't disagree with that, Michelle. I think, I do know a decent, as an architect, I spend a lot of time with materials, and I wouldn't say that stucco is on the top of my list, but I understand it to be an affordable product and one that is commonly used. As it relates to how this will sell based on this texture or that one, I'm not certain that it would be very easy to determine that with laced stucco versus smooth. I might be more of a fan of smooth, but at the same time, that's a hard one for me to think that we're here to determine if they can be marketable because of a stucco finish.
You can't even.
One versus another, not
Can't
even
enforce
color.
the quality or the.
You know, we're not changing the material from stucco to another material. I could see that bringing a quality difference to the buildings, but that's not what's at hand. So I'd agree. I think that wouldn't be my choice necessarily to lock that in.
So Jennifer, I'm hoping you're a stucco expert, are you?
I am not a stucco expert, but I do know the difference of the stucco. Again, I agree. I don't think with everything that has been done in order to make this a marketable project, I would hate to hold it up over stucco. So it's not something that I appreciate staff's concern and the overall aesthetics and the many of the constructions in Mesa. And I do commend you for that. On this particular project, there is a little concern also for the consistency of the HOA on the other. If they have HOA that be written into the bylaws would be the maintenance of the stucco. And to have two different materials that they're maintaining and the cost to do that and how that's applied could be very cumbersome for the HOA to address on how we're maintaining the stucco. So I'll leave it at that, but I hate to see this held up on stucco, and I'm good to.
So it sounds like you're probably in favor of the two proposals we're looking at, staff's proposal in terms of the stucco issue. Are the applicants, are you leaning more towards the applicant's compromise? Or just no? Or, I don't mean to put words in your mouth. You gave me that look.
No,
like, what are you doing?
no. Well, the of F, I have no concerns to
Either one?
pass that as staff, you know, and I'm in favor of the lace stucco on this project. Does that answer?
Oh,
You're in
okay,
favor
thank
of
you. That
staff's
clear.
recommended conditions.
No, the staff wants smooth.
I'm
So,
sorry,
so
yes.
you're for,
See?
you prefer smooth?
Spanish, no.
You
Oh,
don't,
boy.
Okay.
okay, no, I'm confused.
Okay.
We're confusing ourselves here on
The
stucco.
Spanish lace is what the applicant wants to maintain on the
And they've
property.
also offered an option to do a combination of the two.
Oh, you have agreed to the combination?
Well, they're willing to, but the staff hasn't agreed. They would still like to see the
I see.
alternative. So that's left in our hands by design to figure out the direction of stucco and Mesa.
And that's what our proposal says.
The combination
Yes,
as a compromise,
yes.
Okay,
thank you for,
I misunderstood
That's what
that.
our revised condition, I think that, oh my gosh, Leslie, it's been a long day. That's what Leslie gave you our proposal, which provides for the opportunity to do lace stucco and the smooth finish stucco on the pop-outs and wainscots.
Okay,
And
I
we agree
misunderstood.
with that. And so hopefully with that, I mean, it's a compromise and we can move forward.
I thought that was staff's requirement that you were opposed to. Okay.
okay, so,
Can I ask then, so the street face will have smooth stucco and anything that pops out, but the other sides will have,
No, that's staff's.
oh, that's what they want. You
Yeah,
want to take F
I
off.
want
I don't know that we have.
I want you to throw that behind you.
Okay.
Turn the
This-
paper over.
Oh, it's two slides?
Oh, look at
Mr.
that. We're
Chairman,
saving
there's-
paper too. Okay.
We want the one that says that
Okay.
we can use the lace stucco and the smooth stucco on the pop-outs and wainscots.
So you will.
We will have two stucco
Stucco,
finishes.
It's not totally optional.
Correct.
Correct, okay, so it would be a compromise.
Okay.
And just Chair, Board Member Boyle.
Yeah.
We are perfectly fine with going with the applicant's alternative. You won't be offending staff if you go that route.
Oh, this isn't going to come back to haunt me later?
No, it won't.
You never know, you might get a visitor from code compliance about the nature of the stucco on your home, huh?
Right, well, I want you to be very aggressive at making sure that things look good in this city. And that's my ultimate goal. That's why I take time out of my day and am late to dinner and everything, because I want Mesa to be a much prettier city than it currently is. And I want, as we go forward, I want this to be thought out. Like, I hope you're getting that vibe and that you've been getting that vibe from me since I started on this board.
Personally, I think
Okay.
we are. All right, at this point, I'll entertain a motion. Somebody?
I'm trying to get the thoughts together. I'll do it.
Can I motion that we go forward with the applicant's requested conditions of approval on Z17024, the 2300 block of East University Drive, South Side?
Okay.
Is that,
Is that?
did I say everything I was supposed to?
Is that clear enough? Do we need to restate that?
If you could be just a little bit more clear that you're recommending approval of this case with the stipulations.
Combined?
I'm proposing the applicant requested version of this piece of paper and not the staff recommended
You're
version
proposing that it be approved.
on the back. I'm saying go with what the applicant requested for item F.
Are we clear?
Yeah, I think that's fine. And then also, if you want to go ahead and add approval of the preliminary plat. Item 4.
And approval of the preliminary plat, which is
C.
5C,
See.
the 2300 block of East University Drive, South Side.
All right, I think we
good?
got that. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. Unanimously among those that are present. Thank you.
We do need to let the New York Times know that we're arguing about stucco.
That we're arguing about stucco.
It writes itself.
All right, thank you, everybody. Okay, let's move on to item 4E, case Z17-026, the 6500 block of East Brown Road, North Side. This is a rezone from RS9 and OC-PAD to RM2 PAD and the site plan review and special use permit. And I will turn time over to staff. Wahid?
Mr. Chairman and member of the board, this is a rezoning case from RS9 and OC-PAD to RM2 PAD. And also it's a site plan review and also special use permit for an assisted living facility with memory care. So the site is, it's a total entire block of Brown Road, 65th Street and 66th Street and Tonto Street to the north. So the applicant is taking the whole block area and proposing this assisted living or Mesa Senior Living Facility. It's a well-designed site, and they have done the citizens' participation complete, involved the neighbors and all. And the PAD addresses two things. One is reduced parking. this type of facility, our experience, and also they submitted their traffic analysis that they don't generate as much as traffic as standard facilities we do. So they have 54 parking spaces less than typical required for other facilities. And then there is a slight reduction of setback along 66 streets where 20 feet is required. They're providing 16 feet 5 inches. It's a little portion next to the service area of memory care. Then the other is, the RM2 zoning district maximum allowable height is 30 feet. Because of their design with the pitch roof, it's coming to 44 feet maximum height on the top of the ridge line. But it is still a 3-story building, which they located strategically along the west side next to the park, away from the homes. So the whole facility is a 3-story, 2-story, and a single-story memory care. Overall, we didn't have any major issue with the layout of the site plan, and we did not get any major neighborhood opposition. In fact, we got a lot of neighborhood support and email staff has received supporting the project. The project has gone through design review board, design review work session twice. So they are still working with staff for improving the quality of the design. Having said that, we are approving the project with conditions of approval. And since this is a rezoning, it will go to the city council for final action. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have.
Thank you, Wahid. Any question, board members? Yes, Tim.
Is this where I can ask my question on aesthetics?
Yes. And so you ask your question, I'll give you a response.
Members of the staff, given that we've just had a debate on the stucco, if we have other issues with the look of a building size, appropriateness, and things of that nature, I mean, these are things that have come up. Is it appropriate? Is it looming? Is it too high? Is it too big? Is it too bulky? And given that I believe this has already gone through design review, where do we as the Planning and Zoning Board, what are our limits as to what we can legally or properly oppose for a project such as this? Okay. Or any project for that matter.
Okay, sure. Chair, Board Member Well, I'll try to give you a little bit of an answer. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to give you maybe as clear a line as we would all like, because there is some overlap in the Design Review Board and the Planning and Zoning Board in terms of what the ordinances allow and what we look for. The goal here is the bigger picture type issues, and you mentioned some of those things, what the overall bulk and massing and how it's relating to the neighborhood and those kinds of things. When we get into more of the true architectural details, it's really more on the Design Review Board side of things, but again, there may be some suggestions, directions, feedback that you could provide in terms of, that ridge line looks just too straight. Can you look for ways to break it up, or, some kind of general things like that, and still leave it open to the board. But in terms of specifically what the ordinance allows for, particularly in this case, it has the PAD component to it. And so within the planned area development, we mentioned this a little bit ago, the intent of the district is to provide creative, high-quality development. And so you have that purview. We do put more emphasis on the development quality when we're doing that. And a specific item under that, item D, building design, site design, amenities to create a unique and more sustainable alternative to conventional development. So that is in part of your purview in terms of looking at the PAD within, excuse me.
John, could you read that line again? I didn't hear.
Okay, I already got off of it. D was building design, site design, and amenities that create a unique and more sustainable alternative to conventional development. Kind of a broad statement, but still gives you that opportunity to look and consider some of the design elements. Within the chapter 69 with regard to site plan review and the criteria for that review, there are a couple of those that relate to the site design. Number 2 on the list The overall design of the project, including its scale, massing, site plan, exterior design, and landscaping, will enhance the appearance and features of the project, site, and surrounding natural and built environment. And item 4 on the list, project details, colors, materials, and landscaping are internally consistent, fully integrated with one another, and used in a manner that is visually consistent with the proposed architectural design. So, those items are part of the site plan review. So let's give you the opportunity to speak, at least to some degree, to some of the design components.
Well, then, I guess my concern is, recently there was an apartment complex on Country Club that had a similar original look. A bunch of neighbors came out and opposed it and said, you know what, this is what Mesa was 30 years ago. We are trying to become the Mesa of the future. Can we have a redesign that looks more appropriate to what is now happening? I have no problem with this project. I just moved a neighbor, a veteran, and his mother into a very, very similar project not far from where we live, and I love the work that it is and everything it does. But it looks, this one, which is 30 or 40 years old, that I moved them into, looks exactly like this. It's like we're not actually moving forward with the high-quality developments. Does a high-quality development try to look like what building technology is moving into? Are we moving into this is what Mesa's going to look like in 30, 40, 50, 60 years? I don't feel like this is really, the architecture of this, I do not feel is the high-quality architecture that I would expect and hope to see that Mesa is building to in the future. I don't see this as terribly unique as a new project. And sustainability, again, it looks quite a bit like similar projects that I've seen that were built 30 to 40 years ago. So I would hope that we, despite the fact that design review looked at this project, I get the feeling that maybe they were asleep or something, because they shot down a very similar thing last time.
Chair, Board Member Boyle, I'll comment. The design review board is not totally done with it necessarily.
Oh, is that true?
They still had some concerns at the last meeting. It depends what I can continue to work out with the applicant to address the design review board's concerns. It may or may not go back there. They're hoping it doesn't, but we'll see.
So, okay, well then I would need to find out if it's substantial enough to make this thing look like a building we would be proud to build here. That's my big concern, that I don't feel like this is really taking the opportunity to express how good a building it could look. It seems like a very kind of, this is what these look like, plop it down, be done with it.
Chair, if I may, Director Wesley, was the design review comments in concern related to the louvers, did I hear? And then is it only that topic? Have we moved past the other elements?
Chair, Board Member Astle, that has still been one of their primary concerns, has been the louvers. There were a few other comments. They've been to the design review board twice, and they have responded to the initial comments with most of the other items fairly well, and the board was fairly satisfied with what they had done with the other items. The louvers are the biggest item remaining.
And maybe a quick question to staff. What items on this project do you feel like are comfortably, considering the approval and the conditions, what do you think is comfortably providing the assurance that we're hitting that PAD quality of design, that's slightly beyond your standard development like was listed in your explanation?
Couple of things. I would say the site plan. So I think strategically they've done a good job on a site plan. There is a lot of open space on the ground, and the whole building is kind of spread it out. So it's not like a one big box, which they could have done it, but they chose to make it like a sprawling building.
Do you mind if we look at the site plan, Rebecca? Sorry.
Yeah, as the site plan shows, so the west wing, or when we look at the drawing, the left wing is the 3-story assisted living. The right side, or the east wing, is this 2-story assisted living. The connection is all the common areas, and then that is a memory care towards the north. That's a single story. So they are all internally connected. but there is a lot of open space and the parkings are distributed, so you don't see a huge parking lot also. And then the other thing is they maintain all along the neighborhood, the streets like Tonto, 66th and 65th Street, enough setback and landscaping so you can still maintain that streetscape, walking and all that. That's, I think, their biggest, they have plenty of patios and outdoor courtyards in that. I mean, for memory care, I know that's internal, but they have between the buildings, those courtyards, they have green area, like kind of a lawn, and also not everything green, I mean, other type of landscape without lawn. So I feel the site plan is their strongest thing, and as staff, and I think they also know their weakest side is most probably the design side. I mean, the board has been giving us the direction from the first to improve the design. And just to share, like staff has shared with the applicant some of the recent assisted living that got built, not necessarily in Mesa, everyone, like in, let's say I'll share like one in Gilbert. We have shared that it's done very nicely. It's the whole package. I'm not promoting a theme that looks like that's one on Lindsay and Guadalupe. We have shared with them. We have shared the pictures with them also. That has a two-story. But the overall package from your screening wall down to the building architecture with dormer windows, so you don't see that. So the whole package looks like a complete design. And this one, staff has shared, so this shouldn't be new things to the applicant from the very beginning, that we have issues with your design. It doesn't look like very wow factor there. And then we have to also understand, I know the neighbors will come and told us also they like the design, so just approve it. So that's the other side of it.
Any response?
I agree with you. I think the landscape plan is great and it's well situated in there. I think the elevations leave a lot to be desired, and I would hope that I would hope that they would want this project to be something they could be proud of in the future, and not just get it through as is currently designed.
Okay, staff, you're deliberating. Is there any additional comment? Okay. Tim, are we good on?
I've said my piece. Does anyone else have an opinion?
I think that the applicant meets the idea behind the PAD, mostly because of the site plan and the landscape plan. So I think those things outweigh, maybe they don't outweigh design, but I'll leave design up to the design review board and the staff to really hone it down into what they want. And I'm sure the applicant does feel proud of this project, and I'd like to hear from them to have them share with us why they think what they've proposed is good and something they can be proud of and be long-lasting and will look good for years to come.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Shane Alleman with Tiffany and Bosco, 2525 East Camelback Road. I think what I'd like to do here is, if I could just pull up my presentation here. We won't have to go through the whole thing, but I think if we show a slide here. And first of all, I want to commend staff. It's been wonderful to work with staff. They've given us a lot of input, and Ryan Companies, who I represent, has responded well to them in responding to the comments, and we've come up with different stipulations, one just in the last couple days that we've added to it, and so we've worked with them, and they've been wonderful to work with on this. One thing I will say is that the developer that we're representing is Ryan Companies, and they are a very prominent construction and development company that has done many of these sites, and they're well known for the awards that they've that they've received for the construction, the development that they've done on the property. They're partnering with a company called Cadence Communities, who also has a number of years, decades of years of experience with these types of projects. And so we're excited to come with this partnership to the site. And I'll also say that we've been really pleased with the neighbors. We've done a lot of outreach, and we had about 35 people come to our neighborhood meeting that we initially had, and it was a great discussion. It ended on a very, very positive note. We had colors up, we had materials up, and actually allowed them to give us input on what you liked. What were some things that you wanted to see in the neighborhood? What are colors that you like? What are materials? What kind of architecture do you like to see? And so taking that input from the neighbors, we were able to go back and we were able to create additional elevations and features that we were able to add to the elevations that we were able to present to staff. Now, when we first presented to the DRB, they had a lot of questions and a lot of comments about what we had here. If I could just put this up. And when we came back this second time, you can see this rendering that we have here. This kind of highlights some of the things that we did add. And I don't know if it's maybe it's not translating well in the elevation. Maybe this will help if I just highlight some of the items that are on the elevation that we have added. One of the things that they wanted on the Brown Road entrance was our main entrance. And you can see it's the porte cochere there. They wanted more detailing. They wanted more stone there. And so they actually, Ryan Companies came forward with a different elevation that actually rose the stone all the way to the height, added more of those elements, those design elements, to make it more of to have a sense of arrival when they came to the site. They didn't like the DRB didn't like the tower that you can see there on the left of the entrance. And so we were able to take a look at that, redesign it, make it a little bit more cohesive. We enhanced the articulation of it and the windows on there, and we were able to do that. You'll see right by the parking there, there's your vertical bays. What it used to look like, it used to be a flat surface, all flat and one color on the elevations. And you can see noted there that there's some vertical bays that have alternate stucco coloring. It is a flat stucco. I don't want to get into a discussion of stucco, but it is a flat finished stucco on there. But they popped that out to give a little bit more dynamic to the wall and a little bit more texture to the wall. Another thing that they did right next to those vertical bays is they also added stone all the way up those stone column balconies that used to not be there, and so that was another element that was added to the stone columns there. And then going along the remainder of the elevations, they also added some additional colors to make some contrast on the wall, so it didn't look so flat and white. As we've sent these out and sent them to different neighbors, we've heard nothing but positive feedback from the neighbors. We have a couple here today that are supportive. I don't know if they want to speak, but we've received a number of support letters and emails that have gone to staff and the council members, and they've been extremely supportive of it. With all that, we do recognize that DRB and staff has some issues with some of the elements, and we are continuing to work with them on those items. One of them is the louver issue, which we're probably going to have a sit down here in the next week or two with that, and possibly some other architectural elements to discuss those things to come to some consensus. Because Ryan Companies, they're a national-wide company. They want to leave something here that they're proud of. We've told that to the neighbors. They don't want to they're not just a fly-by-night developer. Cadence Communities certainly wants to be a good neighbor to them. So we certainly are going to continue to work with staff to make sure that we're all comfortable with this, that we leave something that we're proud of, leave something that could be a legacy for the city of Mesa, and also something that staff and the Planning Commission and City Council can be proud of that gets developed here. So I'd be happy to answer any other specific questions or take any other input.
Well, this is Ryan Companies is definitely a great group. They've done Marina Heights, they've done Hayden Ferry Lakeside, but this isn't that, right? This looks like 30, 40-year-old building that shows up in Mesa, and if you pile some stone on it, then it solves all the problems. That doesn't cut it for me. I would hope that you would take this and say, let's make something that we will say, oh, we did this Mesa Senior Living Community and Marina Heights and Hayden Ferry Lakeside, and that's why we would give you this opportunity to have this special zoning on it.
Great. Thank you, Chair, Board Member.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much. You're gonna, it's on, okay. We've got two public members that I believe wish to speak, or at least provided cards. You do not?
I think they just support.
Read the cards?
Yeah,
Okay,
cards.
let me read those in. I have a card from Carol Griffin at 6603 East Tonsil Street. She is in favor of the project, wishes not to speak. And then also Judy Ann Shy at 1325 North at 66th Street. She is also in favor of the project. Okay, any questions? Anybody wants to ask anybody?
I'd like to just talk a little bit further with Board Member Boyle, but what are, not being an architect, and maybe what you tell me I'm not going to even understand, but what would you prefer to see? What different things are you looking at? Do you not like the materials, the colors? You don't, I mean, what is it specifically that you don't like about this?
Well, I guess, Michelle, for a building of this size, and the building's going to get all these bonuses and everything like that, it's a giant stucco mass, right? Like, look at that left side. It's this huge 3-story, barely any articulation to it, gigantic single roof. It's just it just looks like what's always happened, right? There's no, here's the progress that we've made in design in the last 30, 40 years. Here's what things look like. You wouldn't look at this and be like, this was done by the same people that did Marina Heights. It's just, there's nothing amazing. There's nothing inspiring about this. There's nothing new about this. It's the same things that people have been dropping in Mesa for years and years and years. And I would hope that we move to the next step.
When I think about those other projects, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to ask the applicant. I know Ryan does a lot of big projects. If you don't mind me intervening here, have you done other senior living facilities, or is this your first one?
Yeah, so there's one.
And kind of what do they look like? Is this?
Yeah, so I've got a sample here of one that was done in Scottsdale recently, and that's the only one that I brought. But this is this is a completely different type of architecture. But this shows some of the outside architectural elevation, but also some of the interior, the quality that Cadence and Ryan are committed to. But certainly it's a different type of architecture and different type of element that's here. But yeah, they've done I believe 9 different senior living facilities.
And do most of them look like this one in Scottsdale, or like the one that you're proposing?
I think they're all a varying.
Yeah, they look mostly like. Can I speak?
Yes, please. If you come up and give us your name.
Hello. My name's Tyler Wilson. I'm with the Ryan Companies. I'm the developer of the project. My address is 3900 East Camelback Road in Phoenix. Most of our senior living projects have been developed throughout the upper Midwest. We're based in Minneapolis. We have an office in Chicago, and we have an office here. So this would actually be our second project in the Southwest. Cadence, our partner, they developed the project that you see here. They're a very high-quality operator of senior housing communities. They're bringing much of their experience and their aesthetic to what we're doing here, along with our architecture team, who's actually also out of the Midwest. So we have architects in our Minneapolis office and also in our Phoenix office that have been working on this. We have a similar project in Chandler, Arizona, which has a very similar aesthetic look to this. So, it's been our experience that
to the one in Scottsdale, or the one that's proposed for?
We have a proposed project in Chandler, Arizona that looks very much like the one that we're proposing here in Mesa.
Thank you.
I would say that, and so the projects we've done in the Midwest and the one in Chandler are very consistent with this project. What I would tell you is, so there's a project called Legacy Retirement Residence, and it's only about a mile away. It's just north. It's on McKellips. You can see a little bit of it in our exhibit showing the louvers. I personally think that that's a nice project. It's a very well leased senior community, very near this area. And while I like that project, frankly, I think our project is going to be far more high quality in terms of the exterior finish and the interior finish, the service, the landscaping, et cetera. We really use that because it's a recent, it was only built 2 years ago, and it's very close. We really use that as sort of, that's our baseline. And if you're looking at, let's move the needle in the city of Mesa, well, we said, well, that's the newest, what I would consider one of the newer, better projects in Mesa. Well, let's do better than that. Let's move the needle above that. Let's do more stone. Let's do, so their roof is actually made of just a very typical, what do you call that? Just like an asphalt shingle, where we're going to be doing a much thicker concrete shingle roof. We think that our materials generally are going to be much higher quality. We think our paint colors are better and more modern, and we're going to be very, very proud of this project. Keeping in mind, with office buildings, we have the ability to put really attractive glass and all kinds of these really just amazing bits of architecture. But this is very different. These are, even though it's assisted living, these are people's homes, and people want, with a home, they want a certain amount of warmth and a certain amount of texture. And people want things to fit within the context of a neighborhood. And we feel like our project fits very well within the context of the neighborhood and feels very much like a home. And I think that if we were to go to significantly different materials or a much different look, it gets away from that kind of that homey, warm feeling that we think that the residents of a community like this will want. So, thank you.
Thank you. Jim, do you have any response to that?
Yeah, so you look at this and you think home. This feels like a home to you guys. It's not, the materials I'm fine with. It's just this is huge, gigantic, flat, blocky thing there that could really, really be something amazing. And it's just very, it's just.
So, yeah, so look, so I agree. I don't, as the future owner of this property, I don't want a big flat block, right? That's not our intent. So I have a couple comments. One is, so we've added stone to the columns of the balconies, and I think what an elevation doesn't really do is it doesn't really show those balconies the way that they come off the facade. The reality is those balconies are going to come off the facade. They're going to provide quite a lot of articulation to that. We're going to have different colors vertically on there in terms of, and different materials. We also have score lines that kind of break up the stucco and break up the mass of it. But I think that most importantly, in terms of all the points that we've made, is those elevations don't show any landscaping. We're going to have mature trees all around it. So imagine these, eventually when they grow, we're going to have, and per code we have several 36-inch box trees, and that's required. These are going to be mature trees that are going to be surrounding, these elevations. So instead of just looking at the elevation as blank, you have to picture them with really attractive large vegetation in front of it with lots of different color and texture and sizes. And that's what really makes these buildings feel good and feel like a home, in my opinion. So that's where the elevations lack.
Right. But even that means you're hiding the building with trees. Even you guys admit that this is a big, giant plant.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of it, and we'll continue to work with staff. I mean, we're open to doing that, and we are having the discussions on some of the issues that DRB came back with. So we'll continue to do that.
Okay, just wanted to beat you guys up on that for a while. I think this could be magnificent, and it's very par currently.
So Tim, what were your thoughts about the rendering of the project in Scottsdale? Is that what you had in mind?
Well, maybe this would be a quick question for Michelle. Do you feel like there's a big difference between this one here? I mean, you were asking sort of that. Does this have the same feel as the renderings we're seeing for this project?
It's still a big building. The proposal has more colors than this. I know it's a different architectural style too. Again, this is not my area of expertise, but it's still a big building. It's going to be a big building because of what the use is.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could make a comment, Chair and board member, we've taken great care to take a look at the massing of it, and it is easy to take a look at the elevation and say, here's the big block, but in reality, it is tucked to one side of the property, and it is a combination of one story, 2-story, and this 3-story is tucked away from the neighborhoods, which the neighbors really responded well to that. They didn't have any problem with the massing or that there was a 3-story building, but they loved that it was tucked away from them and that they were able to have a gradation of these stories going by or going down. And when you look at these elevations too, I mean, one of the things that is different from these pictures compared to the elevations is there is a little bit more texture because there's shadows and the vegetation, and you can see the undulation and the different offsets. And when you take the things that I pointed out in the elevation, the combination of the vertical bays and the pop-outs and the shading over some of the windows and the stone, and that the bays are out, I think the combination of that with all of the vegetation gives it a combined package of really something that fits in with the neighborhood that's existing there.
Thank you. Additional questions, anybody?
No questions from me. I could agree and disagree with many different things said. I mean, ultimately, I do see how landscape and architecture play a role within one another, and they should. They do activate, they do work together, and they always will. Maybe I do see ways where this could be different. I also understand design as a designer to be very subjective, but at the same time have kind of an underlying standard of quality that I know you're fighting to achieve, and I believe there is still a little bit of room, and I'm hoping that would trust in staff to go through that and work it through with you and not stop till they feel comfortable with the project. I don't feel like we as a group can go too much further, it seems, as it relates to this, but I am glad that we have the opportunity to discuss it and hopefully make a mark. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any, thank you for your time. Any other discussion then besides comments made? All right, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. I recommend approval of case Z17026, the 6500 block of East Brown Road, a rezone from RS9 and OC PAD and RM2 PAD, site plan review and a special use permit to allow for the development of a transitional senior living facility with the staff recommended approval, conditions of approval.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Is there a second? I'll second that. Thank you, Jennifer. Any additional discussion? Please vote. Okay, motion carries. We have 4 in favor and Mr. Boyle opposed. With that, we will move on to our next case, which is case Z17027, the 1402 North Wrecker Road. This is a rezone from RS7 to RM2 bids, and it is a request to require the development of a second detached residence. And I will turn time over to staff for.
Michael, maybe I can just, since this was on a similar note, if you guys still all feel the same way about kind of letting them do the decisions and everything like that, then I'll do my note. We don't have to have the same conversation that we just had. If I think that this thing is not up to the standard that I would like to see, and you all feel like it is, then I don't think we need to have a long.
Well, thank you, Tim. I really appreciate that sensitivity. Board members, any comments with regards to what Tim has stated? Is there any reason to discuss this? Debate it? Then if that's where we're at, then we will forego the presentation and I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'm making motions today, left and right here. I'll recommend approval of case number Z17027, 1402 North Wrecker Road, rezone from RS7 to RM2 BIZ to allow for the development of a second detached residence subject to staff's recommended conditions of approval.
Thank you, Michelle. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Thank you, Jennifer. Any other discussion? Please vote. See, everybody's gone home. Oh,
I pushed the wrong button.
there we go. What? Okay, similar results, motion carries. Those present are all in favor with the exception of Board Member Boyle, who voted against. And as I look at our agenda, I believe that is it for the evening. John, is there anything else we need to discuss?
I don't think so.
Looks like we've been abandoned.
Everybody left us.
Do you blame them?
Turns out nobody actually cares about it.
Well, I think that people do care. That's why we had so many here, and we actually have a lot of public participation. It was really great. Thanks for good conversation. And Tim, I appreciate your thoughts too, personally. I know there are a lot of different opinions here, but I personally respect your desire to constantly keep edging us forward to improve the quality of what's going on here. So it's a healthy discussion, even though not everybody might agree with the specifics, okay?
Yeah, and Chair, if you don't mind, I agree. I think, because I'm passionate about design as you are, I wonder how we take the forum forward to make it better. It's a little harder to do in the setting of arriving at this board. You know, I wonder if there's some markers where we could get with staff and talk about it in a different fashion.
And I'm also just trying to get the notification out there that, come on, let's, because at this point, it would be ridiculous. I mean, they've spent so much money getting this thing to where it's at right now. I don't want them to have to go back and start again, but the next projects that come along, let's say, hey, let's take a second look at this. Let's start at the beginning and work towards something that we'll all be proud of.
Chair, if I may interject just real quickly. You may recall a year or so ago, we were coming to the board with our definition of quality development. You may be wondering whatever happened to that. Some of you may not even know about it, but just based on overall staff workloads and whatever, we haven't really been able to finish that up. But we have received a budget from the city manager to hire a consultant to help us move that project forward. And so the RFP is getting ready to go out on that. So again, that will give us an opportunity, we hope, to come back and more fully address some of these design quality issues.
Well, that's good news, John. Thank you for sharing.
We're going to want lace stucco off of that.
Our hands are tied on the design issues as far as.
Yeah. Maybe you need to be on design and reform. Well, they'd really have fun with you there.
They have enough architects on that board crying about every little problem here and there. Someone needs to do it here. Like,
All right.
they need to hear it from mom and dad.
Thank you, everybody, for your participation today and in the past, and as we go forward. It makes a lot of fun when everybody's involved, energetic, and even have conflicting ideas. That makes, in my opinion, always for a very healthy discussion. So that being said, I will entertain a motion to go home.
Should we make Michelle do it?
Well, now everybody volunteers. What is this?
This motion, I believe, will carry.
Okay.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting tonight.
I have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. We'll see you next month.